Hi everyone, Frank here. Thanks for tuning into Tiny Tales. Today's episode contains references to infant loss that may be upsetting to some listeners. Discretion is advised.
Sweat tracked trails through the dust coating Jalitsa's flushed skin. She'd set up house at the edge of the forest, despite the risk, despite the labor, because everywhere she turned in the village, she had remembered her grief. Out here, where she couldn't hear the whispers of neighbors, she planted rows of cabbages, turnips, the mustard and rye and white-eyed potato mounds. Suspicious roots, recalcitrant leaves. She dreamed of fields wild and lush. But like every dream, love wasn't enough. And she had loved the baby, hadn't she? Sight unseen, a dream, a promise, a flutter that meant she'd done everything right. Each morning, she watered the rows before the sun spilled over the side of the forested hills. Hardening the ground, Jalitsa worked to soften. A scar pulled taut over what she'd planted. Each evening she lugged more pails of water from the creek, again and again, until she felt abundance in her back, generosity in the shoulder girdle, until she could collapse, knowing she'd given everything. If working the midday field was the last labor undone, wasn't it worth the risk of sunstroke if it meant a full harvest? Perhaps not, but everyone already thought her a fool. She had pretended their taunts rolled off her back, tried to ignore the hurt. Running off like a loose chicken. You can't run from your problems. Are you listening? I'm trying to help. She'll grow witch's fingers and ground that hard. Nothing to eat out there. Give her a chicken, Darius. Least then she won't be found starved alone in bed. Won't matter if a troll comes out forest. The market erupted in laughter. Trolls and witches, fey folk to spoil your milk. Evil eyes cursing a child. She'd heard it all. Cruel. Always cruel. You can't eat dreams, girl. Maybe if you'd quit mooning and paid more attention to what mattered, you'd still have... The careless thought pulled short. But not so short, Jalitsa couldn't hear the unspoken words. Your baby. If she didn't believe in magic and wishes and witches and curses, where did that leave her? Better to be cursed than be blamed. So here she toiled. Here she tried once again to grow something she loved by giving her all. Her knuckles grew sore and her tongue heavy in her jaw, but her worries shrank to the plants in front of her. The chickens gabbled in the distance, and Jalitza paused to listen. She pulled her hat off and pretended the air cooled her sweaty scalp. Madness. She'd lose a whole day's work recovering tomorrow. Maybe the others had been right. Maybe she should go back to the village. Out here, though, on the edge of the forest where shadows walked, the silence comforted her. Jalitza moved to stand, and the flutter of white at the end of her rye patch looked like a swoon stealing upon her. She bent over, hands on knees, until the edges lost their shimmer. When she stood fully, the fluttering resolved itself into a child walking toward her. Jalitza knew the tricks the forest played on people. A desire trail leading off the blessed path was named such for a reason. You ended up chasing any temptation you harbored close and quiet. So, a child walking out of the forest made perfect sense. The child's face was smudged with dirt, and the sweat made their curls dampen delicately around tender ears. A face in need of mothering. Jalitza's fingers ached to smooth the child's hair, to wipe away the smudge. No, her fingers ached because she spent hours pulling at stubborn weeds. She must keep what little wits she had about her. "Have you seen my cat? I think he's lost." Tears dampened wide eyes. Rainbow flash before streaking like lightning down baby cheeks, soft and round, plump. Unlike any child from the village, not hollow and lean like saplings, this child was roses, graveyard oak, old soul, fragrant heart. Jalitza suppressed a shiver. "Be polite to the Fae, or they will teach you manners." "I haven't," Jalitza said, as if everything were normal. Heart's desire. Jalitza could not let a child go thirsty, even a pretend one. "I have some water. Are you thirsty?" Fingers too slender for those cheeks clasped around the jar, gulps so hard and fast that precious rivulets stained the dress. Jalitza pretended the child was truly thirsty, honestly desperate, and she was saving them. Saving a child. The vibrancy of blood, the day her baby died, had startled her. Jolted her from daydreams, bled her of a future. Slaughter red. She pretended she couldn't hear death reminding her that she'd saved no one and nothing, as this child gasped with satisfaction and handed Jalitza the empty jar. Thirsty Jalitza. Tired Jalitza. "Your veggies are tiny, just like me." The child laughed, as if this were a joke Jalitza had planted just for them. Maybe she had. Jalitza echoed the laugh, but it sounded a rasp. The same as if you'd cried too long. A fey child, here in her field of stunted roots. Desperate, Jalitza. Perhaps your cat was curious about my chickens. Why don't we go back together and see if she's exploring the coop? The child accepted this the way a child would, with ease and trust that gets lost as one grows. The little one held out her hand, and Jalitza took it, pretending not to notice the extra joints and the seed of hope sprouting in her undernourished heart.
Today's episode of Tiny Tales was written by Julie Reeser. Julie Reeser is the author of Terracotta Pomegranate and Beak Full of Tongue. Her short stories have been published in Daily Science Fiction, Bards and Sages Quarterly, and Frozen Wavelets. She runs a Patreon full of small joys and is disabled. Find out more about the author on our website. Today's episode was narrated by R.E. Rule. Sound design, music, and production by Frank Nawrot. Additional production by Matthew Ferrandino. Please consider becoming a patron of the show. For just $1 per month, you help maintain the show and you receive exclusive access to Tiny Tales soundtracks. Visit tinytalespodcast.com and click on Membership for details. Thanks for listening.